Yesterday, Senator Tom Cotton, Marsha Blackburn, and my next guest, Senator Jim Lankford, introduced the Combating Racist Training in Military Act. It is the Stop CRT Act. Senator Lankford joins me this morning. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
I'm doing very well, actually. Good morning to you.
Now, thank you for being up early. Tell me about the Stopping CRT bill and why you chose to get involved in it.
Yeah, it's a very basic thing. Let's train people in the military to be able to be good soldiers, to be able to be effective in what they're actually doing, to be able to honor other soldiers, and to be able to respect their religious liberty, their opinion, and everything else. But this whole new focus that's out there with talking about race issues and everything else is a distraction to what's happening in the military. My main focus is the United States military has always been a place where all Americans can come together of great diversity of opinion and background. There's been very hard work for decades and decades in the military to be able to make sure it's equally diverse and they're protecting each other. But this new focus is a distraction to what's happening in the military. Keep us diverse, keep us of a wide perspective and respect for each other, but stop trying to be able to make one group feel guilty about being another group. And that's a distraction to the military rather than assistance to it.
Now, Senator, for years before the so-called racial reckoning that followed the murder of George Floyd, you and your colleague Tim Scott worked a lot on racial reconciliation in the United States. And I remember you started to have someone over for dinner campaign. It's just a very good campaign demonstrating friendship across racial divide. My question to you is, has it gotten worse in the United States with the push for ESG and DEI and CRT? Have race relations gotten worse because of this focus?
Yeah, I was just saying that when Americans are told what they have to do, they don't respond well to it. For most Americans, let's encourage people to be able to get to the table. If we're going to get all the issues on the table, let's get our feet under the same table. And my encouragement is have a meal together. Continue to be able to develop those relationships. It's okay to talk about race. We should talk about race because we're a country that is proud of our conversation that we're having about race. But when you start putting requirements on corporations, requirements on people, different teaching at school that try to teach one person should be guilty because of the color of their skin and the history of their race from 100 years ago, that changes the dynamic significantly on it. So let's encourage race relations. Let's encourage real friendships, not just being cordial to each other, and continue to be able to engage. But when government steps in and tries to compel, that does not work well with Americans.
Now, Senator, I want to talk about the Senate as an institution here. People may not know that I did everything I could to beat John Fetterman and get Dr. Oz elected. Didn't work. John Fetterman won. Now he's sick. And I do not appreciate people online mocking John Fetterman because he's sick.
Nope.
What does the Senate do for a colleague like that? And how does it, when the Senate's so closely divided, does anything change when one of your members is going to be gone for a while?
It really doesn't in many ways. Obviously, Senator Schumer has to be able to make a decision on what bills he's going to bring up in the process that he's going to have. He has full control of what bills actually come to the floor and the timing of those. And so that dynamic is there. But I agree with you. A decision made about anyone in the hospital or anyone who's seeking medical care or for mental health, those things need to be respected for that individual on it, whether it is in a school or whether it's in a neighborhood or a church or a corporation or the United States Senate. We respect the rights of individuals to be able to seek care and to be able to get that.
You have been in the House and the Senate for a while now, Senator Lankford. Is it getting worse and more difficult to talk across the aisle, or is it actually still the same, but the news media exaggerates or extrapolates from isolated incidents?
So I would tell you, as strange as it sounds, the last 2 or 3 months, I feel like it's getting better. Now, maybe this is just my positive optimism on this, but I feel like there's more conversation that's actually happening across the aisle. That doesn't mean we agree on everything, but we can actually sit down and be able to have dialogue and to be able to talk through some difficult issues that we need to do. That is the beginning point of saying, okay, we've got to be able to get some issues resolved. Things like debt. Debt is not a flippant thing that only affects one party. It affects every single American. When we have a rise in debt, well, let's sit down and have some serious conversation. How are we going to address this? What's the long-term effect it's going to have for Americans? But I would tell you there's more conversation that I've taken in the last couple of months in the Senate than I've seen in a very long time. To me, that's a positive sign. Let's talk these things out and find our areas of common ground. Let's get moving.
Senator Lankford, what's your reaction then when the president goes to Virginia Beach yesterday and attacks the MAGA Republicans as a different kind of cat? He's clearly running for re-election, and he's going to clearly pull the playbook out that Republicans are going to destroy Social Security and Medicare, and there isn't any way that they're going to do that.
No.
What does he hurt the ability to get together on these things?
He does. When you continue to be able to drive things that are just patently false on it, what it does is it causes everyone on the right, myself included, to be able to push back and say, I can't negotiate with you. I can't even have real dialogue with you on things because it's so irrational on some of the things that you're bringing up. The thought that Republicans are out there going to destroy Social Security is absolutely absurd. The fact that we're going to try to talk about destroying Medicare and Medicaid is just patently false on that. But here's what it really destroys on it, Hugh. There are real things that need to be done to be able to stabilize Social Security and Medicare. Anyone that's trying to be able to find a doctor right now in Medicaid or Medicare knows how difficult it is to be able to find a physician. So it's decreasing the healthcare quality for those individuals. We should have a real dialogue about what's it going to take to get better reimbursement for physicians so they can get greater access for patients and greater patient care. We should talk about the Social Security Trust Fund is going insolvent in a decade. What are we going to do about that? And so when Biden goes out and says every Republican wants to kill it, what he's really doing is killing real dialogue to be able to say how we're going to fix this long term.
I go back to the Moynihan Commission, Senator, and I remember in '86 on Social Security, it was produced sua sponte, virgin birth, came out of nowhere. And no one knew what was going on, and there it was, and people had to deal with it. Is that the only way forward, to have a small group of senators and congressmen empowered by the administration to have some conversations off the record and come to a plan on entitlements and reform that is acceptable to both parties?
I think that you have to have real dialogue behind the scenes on it, but you've also got to have some daylight on this so the American people know what's happening. If you don't get some sunshine on it, people don't trust anything anymore. They've lost so much trust in government. They want to see the dialogue. They want to see the conversation. So, yes, it takes hard conversation. It takes bipartisan conversation and, quite frankly, nonpartisan conversation. Just look at the facts out there on the table and then to be able to pull together a set of ideas. How do we solve these facts and what's the long-term solution? But at some point, it's got to get to committees. It's got to get in the daylight. American people have got to be able to look at it and go, this is going to be difficult, but we've got to be able to solve this.
Gosh, if we can get an agreed-upon framework for everything with foreign adversaries, we ought to be able to do it with the United States and its debt. Senator Lankford from Oklahoma, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.